everyone, welcome back to Breathe and Bake. Today we are going to make a delicious garlic and herb focaccia bread. And focaccia is a long, thin bread that has a lot of olive oil in it. And we're going to be adding garlic and herbs. If you've ever seen it in the store, it's the one that has like the dimples or holes in it. It is one of my favorite breads, and it actually is super easy to make. So if you are just starting bread making or you haven't done it before, focaccia is a really, I think, good one to start with. And it's nice because you could add tons of different flavors to focaccia. So even though we're doing garlic and herb, you could add tomatoes, you could add olives, you could add all sorts of things to your recipe. So we are gonna get started. I have my mixing bowl here for my KitchenAid mixer that I will be using later. We are going to do 1.5 cups of warm water. You do not want it to be too hot because you will kill your yeast if your water is too hot. All right, so 1.5 cups of water. We're gonna do 2 teaspoons of sugar. The sugar is going to help to activate our yeast. And then if you have the packets, it would be 1 packet of yeast. If you have these containers, like I do, of the active dry yeast, you're gonna put in 2.25 teaspoons. So this is my teaspoon measuring cup. So I'm gonna sprinkle in 2 of these. You can see it on the camera. And then 1/4. And then I'm just gonna take the end of my measuring spoon and whisk this around real quick to combine the yeast and the sugar. And I'm going to let that sit for about 10 to 15 minutes, and we'll see little bubbles forming on the surface after that. You can see here that our yeast has gotten all foamy, so we are ready to keep going. I have put the dough hook on my KitchenAid mixer. We're going to add 4 cups of flour to the yeast, sugar, water mixture that we had going on in there. We're going to add 1 tablespoon of chopped garlic. One tablespoon of salt. I know it sounds like a lot of salt, but this makes a lot of bread. And then 1/3 cup of herbs. I am using a mix that I am growing on my back counter. So in here I have oregano, I have basil, and I put parsley in here as well. Another favorite of mine is just to do a full 1/3 cup of rosemary. Is phenomenal in focaccia bread. It's that rosemary, garlic, olive oil combination is delicious. And then we are going to add 1/2 cup of olive oil. We are going to put this in the mixer on medium speed, start low so your flour doesn't fly, then go up to medium and let it go for 6 minutes. If it seems too sticky, you could add a little bit of additional flour to it. We are done mixing. We are going to add about 1/4 cup of olive oil into a clean bowl. And then you could use a paper towel to spread this around. I'm using a basting brush. You could also just use your clean hands to spread it around the bowl as well. So we have put our dough in here. I'm gonna flip it over so that way the top of the dough is coated with olive oil as well as the bottom. And then going to cover this with a kitchen towel and let it rest for an hour, and then we will come back to shape it. Our dough has doubled in size, so we are ready to get it into the pan. So our dough has doubled in size. We are going to drizzle about 1/4 cup of olive oil onto our pan. You could use a pastry brush to spread it around, or if you have clean fingers, you could spread it around like I'm doing right now. And then you're going to turn your dough out. It smells so good. It's like such a strong smell of garlic and herbs and olive oil. There is really nothing like focaccia bread. So I'm going to spread it out, and then I'm flipping it, and then I'm going to finish spreading it because I want that olive oil to be on both sides of the bread. Okay, so focaccia is known for those like dimples, those divots in them. So go ahead and spread it out. Don't be scared to tear the bread. I'll show you what this looks like when I'm done, because we're gonna have this go for a second rise. And as it does its second rise, some of those divots are gonna get filled in. Some of them will still be like crevices. That's what makes this bread so good. It's like all of those nooks and crannies that olive oil gets kind of stuck in, and later we'll put some flaky sea salt on top before we bake it off. And it just helps really create that texture that you're looking for with focaccia. All right, perfect. So I will bring the, oh, actually I'll just hold it. I think you can see it. You can see all those divots and a bit of tears. It is moving a bit. Let me re-spread it in there. We're gonna go ahead and cover it up again. Let it rest for another hour, and then we will bake it off. And we've preheated our oven to 425 degrees. We're going to drizzle a little more olive oil on top. And then we are going to sprinkle some flaky salt right on top. That looks good. And we're going to bake it for about 25 minutes, and then we'll check on it to see how it's doing. We want to make sure that it's nice and golden brown on the bottom. If we're not there yet, we'll toss it in for another few minutes. The focaccia is done, and I let it cool off, and then I cut myself a small piece. You can see all of those dimples still in it, and that flaky sea salt that we added to the top before we baked it. Now we are going to give it a try. Oh, you smell that olive oil. I think the most kind of pronounced, or the strongest ingredient you smell is all of that olive oil that we added. But you also smell like the yeast and the wheat that's in the bread. And you get a little hint of that garlic that we added to it as well. That is so flavorful. It has such a delicious, like chewy texture, and all that flaky salt just hits your mouth as soon as you take a bite, and you taste the herbs and the garlic and the olive oil. It is so good. I hope you give this a try, especially if you are not someone who typically makes bread but would like to get started. And let us know if you try it out and what you think in the comments. Thank you so much for joining us again today.